Hi there, fellow classmates. This is the Bearcat Ladies here. Moraima Cruz, Brandy Driggers, Leslie Galligan, and Holly Hubert, here to guide you through Chapter 5, Stress. Throughout our presentation, we will be discussing the different stressors and their ability to manifest in your life, both at work and at home. So, what is stress? Well, the dictionary defines stress as a mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. It's important to note that stress depends largely on the nature of the demand and the person who confronts it. It's also important to note that everyone reacts to stress very differently, and usually is caused by stressors. Let's learn more about stressors in the next slide. Now that we've talked about stress, let's talk about stressors. Stressors are something that cause strain or tension. We're going to be talking about work hindrance stressors, challenge stressors, and non-work hindrance stressors that can actually manifest in your life. Now, what is a work hindrance stressor? Well, the book defines a stressful demand that people tend to perceive as hindering their progress toward personal accomplishment or goal attainment. It usually triggers negative emotion and affects employees in regards to role conflict, role ambiguity, and role overload. An example of this would be one day when I was at work, our computer systems actually had an update. However, throughout the update, we lost communication with the server and we weren't actually able to get into any of our patients' charts at the laboratory. So what we ended up having to do was check in patients manually and write down every single test that they had on little pieces of paper and place them on the tubes. This caused a lot of unnecessary work and a lot of stress in regards to being able to process the blood and different tests correctly and make sure that they were a part of the correct person's chart. Challenge stressors, on the other hand, are stressful demands that people tend to perceive as an opportunity for learning, growth, and achievement. An example of a challenge stressor is you, the student, making your way through each class, making your way through each semester, and a goal to graduate from Sam Houston State University and receive a diploma. Challenge stressors often trigger positive emotions and affect employees and people in regards to time pressure, work complexity, and work responsibility. An example of a challenge stressor in the workplace is if you're trying to get a promotion, you may be asked to do additional work that may help in giving you a leg up on the competition. A non-hindrance stressor is something that demands or occurs outside of work and may cross over into the workplace. It can trigger both positive and negative emotion depending on what it is and the person. It impacts an organization through the employee by negative and positive life events, family time, finances, and personal development. An example of this would be you may have a sick child or have had an argument with your significant other that has transferred in your attitude to your workplace. In addition, if let's say you had a tiff with a coworker and it left you in a negative space, you could actually bring that energy back to your house and actually take it out on your spouse. So it works in two different ways. It can be something that happens at work that affects your home life, or something that happens at home that affects your work life. Now that we've discussed stress and stressors, can you identify any current stressors in your life, either at home or at work?
What is strain? Strain is a negative consequence to stress. It is a byproduct of being pushed beyond one's limit or resources available to handle and cope with stress. There are 3 types of strains we're going to discuss in the next slides. They include physiological, psychological, and behavioral.
The first slide we're going to discuss is physiological strains. Stressors trigger normal physiological response in the body. Hormones that contribute to changes are cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine. These hormones move blood away from non-vital organs and supplies the brain and heart. That's why when you are stressed out, you may experience zoning out or hear your heartbeat in your ears. Long-term stress leads to a variety of physiological issues, such as cold, flu, high blood pressure, coronary artery disease, tension headaches, joint pain, and gastrointestinal issues. More serious but temporary effects include migraine, temporary blindness, and temporary paralysis. In the second slide, we're going to discuss psychological strains. You will notice the same hormones that can cause a chain reaction in physical can also cause psychological strains. Hormonal changes cause an increase in emotional responses or keep you in a state of nervousness. As these hormones increase and decrease, the higher probability that someone would experience depression, anxiety, irritability, forgetfulness, foggy brain, and experience reduced confidence. Psychological strains can be managed on a small scale. Extreme examples of psychological strain are temporary psychosis, rage, and burnout. The American Psychological Association states that at least 78% of American adults say their stress level increased or stayed the same over the past 5 years, with 33% saying their stress levels are affecting their mental health, according to a recent report from the American Psychological Association.
Some common behavioral strains are alcohol, tobacco, and drug use, grinding teeth, compulsive behavior, over and under eating. We often call overeaters stress eaters, engaging in violent behaviors such as throwing things, hitting walls, slamming doors, things like that. Deviance, another common one is task avoidance, where we don't want to do our assignments, and so we just avoid doing it and find reasons not to do it. What are some strains you have had or are currently experiencing in your life? A lot of us are probably experiencing headaches and back pain from sitting in front of the computer working on homework for our classes for hours and hours. Many of you have a full-time job in addition to your college classes and your home life, so you may not be getting enough sleep or not eating enough, not getting enough downtime to relax and enjoy life. How do these strains affect us in the workplace? Absenteeism, decision-making, interpersonal conflicts. This is a big one where we tend to take out our frustrations on the people closest to us. We might be more irritable with them or argue with them more often. This is the case both with our spouses at home or just the people we're closest to at work. Lack of focus and lack of motivation. It's hard to be focused and motivated when you're having problems at home or you have a new baby. Poor time management, reduction in productivity, risk of injury or illness. The longer we allow our physiological strains to go on, the worse our health tends to be affected. Strained relationships both at work and at home. This ties back to our interpersonal conflicts where we're fighting with the people who are closest to us. How do you respond to strains and stressors in your work or personal life? You might call in sick to work more often or spend more time on social media and surfing the internet rather than doing presentations or doing your work and avoiding problems like that. You might go to the bar instead of go home in order to not have to deal with your rowdy kids or your spouse who is always complaining about something.
Ariana Huffington is the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the Huffington Post. Huffington was working over 18 hours per day before exhibiting signs of physiological, psychological, and behavioral strain due to work stressors. Huffington passed out while writing an email and woke up in a pool of her own blood with a broken cheekbone and laceration above her eye. She has since made sure to rest her mind and body at least 7.5 hours per night and encourages everyone to do the same. Eliminating stress and strains in the workplace. Avoid working during lunch. Be sure to take a break. You will be refreshed and ready for the rest of your day. Consider a flexible work schedule as an alternative. Maybe a 10-hour day, 4 days a week with 3 days off. Or maybe even start work at 6 a.m., getting off at 3. Be sure to eat 3 healthy meals a day and exercise regularly. It's recommended to exercise at least 30 to 60 minutes 3 times a week. Participate in a health and wellness program at work or even at your local community center. Take time off, leave early, or take some well-needed vacation time. This will allow you to reset yourself mentally, be less stressed, with the ability to be more productive. These are just a few ways to eliminate stress and strains in the workplace.